Today you'll learn what narcissistic supply is and how someone with narcissistic personality disorder select their target. So let's start with what is narcissistic supply. Narcissistic personality disorder is an attachment dysfunction that makes a narcissist unable to form mutual emotional attachment. They don't trust others and see others as a means to self-fulfillment and survival. Others are to be used. They are a supply, as the word says. The narcissist is terrified of feeling inferior and has often only been valued in childhood for their achievements, so they'll use others as a supply to feel superior. They can't collaborate in a mutual beneficial way and are therefore destructive to any social system such as a relationship, because they only care about themselves and what benefits them. It's the mutual care that makes us collaborate well together and function as a social species. And a narcissist is in that regard a parasite for the social organism. They will suck you dry until there's nothing left, until you actually get rid of them. There can be no symbiosis. The parasite will eventually drain and kill its host. That's just how it works. And you're the host, the supply, and the narcissist is the parasite. Narcissistic supply is a form of psychological addiction where the narcissist requires and even demands limitless special treatment, admiration, importance of validation to feed their sense of entitlement and self-centeredness. Narcissists are never satisfied. No matter how much attention they receive, it will never be enough. And so when they have taken all of your supply, they will move on to the next without any regard or care for how this might harm you. They will tell you anything you want to hear to get you close and suck you in, so they can lash on and get you as a supply. They don't attach and will leave instantly when the supply is no longer what they actually want. At this point, you'll be so enclosed in this false fantasy that they actually created for you that you will fight to get the parasite back instead of fighting it off. This is a psychology of narcissistic abuse, an intermittent reinforcement which is create an addiction to the very thing that is actually harming you. Narcissists seek individuals that are easy to lure into their charm and naive to their manipulation and exploration. Most frequently, people with anxious attachment or in a vulnerable position who also lack boundaries and really crave to feel loved. Feeding narcissist supply is really like trying to fill a bottomless pit, and when they don't get it, they may begin to show what's called narcissistic rage. So let's look at why the narcissist actually needs a supply in the first place. Narcissists seek this endless supply of validation, attention, and praise to compensate for a low self-esteem and confidence and a perceived lack of acceptance that's often a result of early childhood trauma and attachment issues. Typically, the narcissist was not loved adequately as a child. Therefore, they use people as objects to obtain what was lacking in their childhood, feeding their supply. During childhood, their caregivers often ignored their emotional needs and never really catering to their inner child and gave them that acceptance that they needed. Their caregivers emotionally abandoned them, causing psychological damage that now extends into childhood. As a result, the narcissist uses other people and things to provide for their emotional needs. The narcissist needs supply in the form of validation to keep that false self intact. The false self is developed to protect them from the world's view that they view as hostile, unstable, unrewarding, unjust, and an unpredictable place. The narcissist was often put down and disapproved of as a child and needed to maintain that false sense of being superior, and anything threatening that will really be seen as a fundamental threat that needs to be destroyed. Narcissists really lack the inner resources to feel worthy and love, making them dependent and feel loved as well, making them dependent on others to affirm their impaired self-esteem and fragile ego. Despite their facade of confidence, boasting, and self-flattery, they crave attention, respect, and constant admiration, and are terrified of feeling undesired, really. So let's look at the different types of narcissistic supply. Some examples of a narcissistic supply are praise or compliments, accomplishment and professional success, financial gains by any means necessary, status symbols such as a big home, a gold toilet, expensive cars, 5-star dinners and expensive hotels, or knowing, for example, celebrities or famous people is seen as a status symbol and supply for the narcissist. Wearing designer labels or jewelries, winning, using alcohol, drugs or addiction, sex, emotional reactions, positive or negative, receiving awards, attention in the news, on social media, being admired or loved by a romantic partner, and it goes on and on the list of narcissistic supply. A psychoanalyst called Heinz Kohut observed that his narcissistic clients suffered from profound alienation, emptiness, powerlessness, and lack of meaning in their lives. Beneath the surface, they can't maintain a positive self-image to support an actual stable identity. So this is why, their early losses of, emptiness, and also therefore they have that need and a significant pain that just wasn't fulfilled. So they kind of mentally disintegrate if they don't get that supply. So trying to please them feels thankless, like I said, trying to fill a bottomless pit. The hole in their inner emptiness of which they're unaware, but expect others to fill. And of course it's impossible. So instead, focus on meeting your own needs and healing your emptiness. So let's see, how does a narcissist target their supply? From conversations I had with people with narcissistic personality disorder and other cluster B personality disorders, it's clear that they have for some an unconscious and others a conscious system for who and how they target their unknowing victim. It's really clear. I've talked repeatedly about the most common traits that they look for in a good supply, which is someone who's a giver, a caretaker, a people pleaser, because they prioritize others at the expense of themselves, and that's a perfect fit for a parasite, right? Somebody they can just suck off and they won't look out for themselves. This tends to be people with anxious attachment who craves to feel wanted and is hyper-vigilant and attuned to other people's needs as they want to get accepted and pleasing others. They also receive validation when caretaking others and ignore their own boundaries. This is the typical target for the narcissist. Therefore, the anxious attached with a lack of boundaries and tendency for people-pleasing and caretaking is the perfect target. So be really aware of that too. They also tend to be easily manipulated because they crave that quick validation and intensity. They get sucked in by the love bombing and the fake superficial compliments that the narcissist is an expert at showering them with. The narcissist use victim stories to trigger that caretaking tendencies in their victim. The narcissist and other cluster Bs will use a series of tests to see if you fit the bill, which includes seeing do you prioritize others over yourself. They will notice if you give up your own share for somebody else, if you're willing to put yourself in a less comfortable position to accommodate somebody else. They will start by making small requests of you, and as you comply, they will make bigger requests. They will tell them if you're willing to give up your own needs and well-being to accommodate them and therefore be a good supply. Their perfect target, as I said, lack boundaries and almost always prioritize others when it's harmful even to themselves. This also tells you how to test for a potential toxic partner by setting early boundaries and seeing how they respond. Do they try to make you feel guilty, get upset, or violate your boundaries? Then it's a big red flag that you're dealing with a parasite, so watch out. Number 2, do they seek quick commitment? They will often quickly talk about this future together, for example, places you'll travel, where you'll have sex, move in together, marriage, kids, say that you're the perfect soulmate together. Anxious attached people tend to seek that quick commitment because they're anxious. And if you respond and reciprocate to this way too early discussion of a future and commitment, they will know you feel anxious and are easier to control, manipulate, and put up more demands to you. A securely attached person would just get turned off by being called a soulmate so early by someone who hardly even knows them or know them for a few weeks, a month. It's fake. It's superficial. And someone securely attached also wouldn't want that super quick commitment because it takes time to get to know another human being, and they feel safe on their own too. Therefore, as I said, the perfect target responds positively and unnaturally to this super early love bombing and toxic commitment. Again, this gives you great insight into how to test and avoid the parasite of this world as you simply slow down and do not make significant commitments or talk about the future in the first 6 to 12 months. The parasite will have moved on and found a new host if you go too slow. They only want to invest the minimum effort in the manipulation stage, also called the idolization stage, before getting your supply. The toxic partner therefore need that fast commitment because once you're committed emotionally, you're more likely to be able to become a supplier and take the abuse. With physical commitments like having a child, moving in together, it gets harder to leave, so therefore they know they can get away with more. 3. Are you a caretaker who wants to change and rescue others? Similar to number 1, a caretaker tends to prioritize others at the expense of themselves, and that's just what the narcissists want. They test for this by sharing, as I said, the victim stories and see if you step in to become the rescuer, right? While you heard me advocate for vulnerability is an essential part of intimacy, vulnerability is a slow opening and disclosure over time to somebody who earned your trust, while emotional dumping is telling somebody your trauma on the third date and expecting them to rescue you and hold your pain, then tell you their victim stories, and most of them are probably lies or might be made up to some extent, and make them feel better when they can see you start looking out for them. If you hook, they know you're a good target. Again, boundaries will allow you to be really clear and say, actually, this is too much to share. I think you should talk to a therapist about this. And again, if you do this, a narcissist will run away. Somebody with boundaries will not give them unlimited supply, always prioritize their needs, which is what they want. This is the last one. They look for to see whether you have boundaries. We already mentioned that, because it's the most critical protection against toxic people that you can absolutely look out for. Because boundaries are critical to any healthy relationship. When they feel you're hooked, perhaps because you caretake them, you reciprocate, talking about a future, you meet all their demands, even when they're expensive yourself, then they know you're hooked. That's when they start testing to see how far they can push you. They will push against your boundaries, they will overstep them. When they do, they'll make you feel guilty and wrong about your boundaries and punish you with silent treatment or rage. The more you allow, the more they will push. It only ends with your collapse as a parasite eventually leave because you have nothing more left to give. Your only reasonable option is to set boundaries. Be the one that leave or go no contact. That's it for today. Follow and subscribe to get these new videos, and also check out the link in the description of my bio to learn a lot more. See you soon.